Welcome to Late Night Science. Tonight, we travel into a place that seems ordinary, yet holds the most extraordinary secrets of existence. Thank you for joining this journey in the quiet hours when the mind softens and the heart listens. If you are here for the first time, I invite you to close your eyes, breathe deeply, and let curiosity cradle you into rest. If you are a returning listener, know that your presence is cherished and your companionship in these late-night wanderings is deeply felt. Before we begin, I would love to know where you are listening from. Share it gently in the comments below. And if these voyages of thought bring you calm or wonder, consider subscribing so together we may keep exploring the deep mysteries of our universe. Now settle in. Breathe with me. We begin not in the stars, not in distant galaxies, but right beneath your feet. Soil. A word that sounds plain, perhaps even dull. Soil, the stuff we walk on, the dust that clings to shoes, the brown earth in the garden. But let us step closer, slower, softer. Soil is not dirt. Soil is not lifeless. Soil is the skin of the earth, thin, fragile, breathing. It is the oldest book, the deepest womb, the final resting place, and the eternal rebirth. It is memory, cradle, and grave. And tonight, we will learn to hear it breathe. Close your eyes. Imagine yourself lying down on the ground, your ear pressed gently against the earth. In the stillness, you may sense something subtle, a pulse, a rhythm, the slow exhale of decay, the quiet inhale of growth. Soil is not still. Soil is alive with transformations, and every breath you take, yes, even this one, is a gift that passed through it. Oxygen released by plants, nourished by roots, rooted in soil, cycling endlessly between what has died and what is alive. Here is the paradox. You walk upon soil daily, but rarely do you see it. Yet beneath every step, more lives exist than stars in the night sky above you. Microscopic worlds, unseen civilizations, vast empires of fungi and bacteria, tiny architects recycling death into life. Soil is the true mirror of the cosmos, infinite, fertile, mysterious. Let us pause and think of contrast. Above us, sky. Open, vast, luminous. Beneath us, soil. Dark, hidden, silent. Yet both hold breath. Both are infinite in scale. Both contain the elements that shape life. We often think of the heavens as sacred and the ground as ordinary. But what if the soil is also a sky, a downward sky, where roots are constellations, where fungi stretch like nebulae, where stones mark the passage of time, like planets anchored in orbits? Science tells us that soil forms slowly. Rock breaks down through wind, water, heat, and cold, mixing with the remains of once living things. Mosses soften stone, roots fracture it, and over centuries, over millennia, soil gathers, thin and precious. In one handful of fertile soil, billions of organisms dwell. They are unseen, yet without them there would be no forests, no fields, no breath in your lungs. Soil is humble, and yet it is the foundation of all life. And here is where wonder meets clarity. Soil is fragile. It can be destroyed faster than it forms. Erosion can strip it in seasons, but creation takes centuries. In this fragility lies its power. Soil reminds us that the cycles of life are not guaranteed. They must be cherished, protected, honored. It is both cradle and grave, but it can also be silenced if forgotten. Now imagine soil not as beneath you, but as part of you. For it is. The iron in your blood once rested in soil. The calcium in your bones was drawn by roots from the earth. The food you eat is the soil transformed, filtered through leaves and seeds and fruits. Your body is soil arranged into a temporary shape, and one day it will return to the same. You are in truth walking soil that has learned to breathe, to think, to wonder. But let us not rush into endings yet. Let us stay with the breath. Soil breathes because it recycles. Life falls, leaves, feathers, shells, bones, and soil welcomes them, dissolves them, remakes them. This is not the stillness of death, but the movement of transformation. Soil holds no judgment, no resistance. It does not ask whether something is noble or lowly. It receives everything, the fallen tree, the insect wing, the great mammal, the smallest seed, and turns it back into possibility. The soil is democratic. It holds kings and peasants alike. It does not distinguish between the philosopher and the farmer, between the bird and the worm. It whispers the same truth to all. What has fallen will rise again, though not in the same shape. In this way, soil is the great equalizer, the quiet reminder that life and death are not enemies, but partners. Science confirms this cycle. Carbon locked in bodies becomes available to roots. Nitrogen released in decay feeds the next season's growth. Water filters, minerals rearrange, and energy flows onward. Soil is the translator between states, between what was, what is, and what will be. Between silence and song, stillness and movement, life and death, and if soil breathes, then it also listens. What stories has it heard, lying beneath battlefields, beneath temples, beneath forests? Soil records everything in fragments. A seed, a bone, a shard of pottery, a layer of ash. It is not just matter, it is memory. Memory too vast for words, too ancient for books. Soil is the earth's subconscious, carrying the weight of all that has happened, all that has been buried. Think of the soil beneath your childhood home. How many footsteps, how many voices, how many nights of rain have touched it? The soil remembers, even if you have forgotten, and the soil beneath your feet tonight will outlast you, holding echoes of your presence long after you are gone. And so, when you close your eyes, you may imagine that you too are breathing with the soil. Each inhale is a gift of the living, each exhale a return to the waiting earth. This breath connects you with the tree outside your window, with the forests that shelter animals, with the ancient lands that cradled civilizations. You are breathing with them through soil, through time. Yet this is only the beginning. We have called soil a skin, a memory, a breath. But soil is also a portal. For when something ends, it does not vanish. It passes through soil and becomes something else. A body becomes nourishment. A fallen leaf becomes fuel. A broken branch becomes shelter for fungi. Soil is not the end of the story, but the doorway into the next chapter. And so let us walk together through this portal with patience, with gentleness. Let us descend deeper into the quiet world where endings are beginnings and where silence blooms into song. For when death enters the soil, it does not mean disappearance. It means translation. And that is where we must go next, into the hidden garden of death, where silence becomes chorus and soil reveals its most intimate secret, that every ending is already a beginning. When you think of death, you may imagine silence, endings, absence. Yet the soil whispers a different story. In its darkness, death is not a wall, but a gate. Not a void, but a transformation. What seems like stillness on the surface is beneath a garden blooming from what has fallen. Every fallen leaf, every body, every feather or shell that rests upon the earth begins a journey through soil's hidden passageways. At first there is silence, yes. The stillness of collapse, the surrender of form, but then slowly, invisibly, another music begins. A symphony of fungi weaving threads through wood, bacteria breaking down tissues into simpler whispers of carbon and nitrogen, worms tunneling through what once was, aerating, digesting, and giving shape to the next birth. In soil, decay is never destruction alone. It is creation dressed in darker clothes. We often fear death because we imagine it as disappearance. But the soil reminds us that nothing truly vanishes. What dies does not fall into nothingness. It falls into soil. There, it is translated into food, into fuel, into possibility. The deer that rests beneath the trees becomes part of the forest's roots. The fallen bird is remembered in the songs of microbes and in the next spring's blossoms. Even we, when our time comes, return to this silent garden, becoming part of cycles too vast for memory, yet too intimate to escape. Here lies the paradox. Soil is both burial ground and nursery. It holds endings tenderly, but it does not keep them locked. It does not hoard, it shares. The worm that consumes death creates pathways for roots. The fungi that dissolve the fallen tree knit together a web that feeds the living. Soil turns grief into growth. It holds sorrow, but it also whispers, wait, this is not the end. This is only the change. Science sees this as decomposition, nutrient cycling, the rearranging of atoms. But you may see it differently. You may see it as alchemy, as transformation. Because in the soil, what is broken is not wasted. What is lost is not lost. Each fragment becomes foundation. Each silence becomes seed. The silence of death in soil is deceptive. It is not the silence of emptiness, but of hidden activity. Imagine standing in a winter forest, snow muffling sound, everything appearing still. And yet beneath the snow, roots prepare, sap waits, buds sleep with the promise of spring. In soil too, what seems quiet is actually abundance in motion. It is a hidden garden, unseen, yet overflowing with potential. Think of fungi, those invisible architects. They stretch filaments through the soil, connecting roots, sharing sugars, passing messages between trees. They take the fallen and break it into pieces the living can use. In this way, death feeds community. Soil teaches us that endings are never solitary. They ripple outward, sustaining networks we cannot see. Even worms, humble and small, are gardeners of the dead. They pull fragments into burrows, mixing what was with what will be. Their movements aerate, soften, enrich. Without worms, soil suffocates. With them, soil breathes, and with each breath, it transforms loss into nourishment. Notice how soil holds opposites together. It accepts both beauty and decay, both fragrance and rot. It is not repelled by death. It embraces it. In the human mind, we separate them. Life here, death there. But soil says no. They are the same. Two hands of one body clasped in eternal rhythm, and if you think of your own body, you realize the truth of this. You are already the garden of many deaths. The food you eat is life that has ended. The cells in your body die daily, quietly replaced, absorbed, recycled. Within you too, endings are beginnings. Soil is not outside you. It is within. Consider this. When something dies in soil, it nourishes not only new life, but also memory. The nutrients taken by a root climb into a tree, and years later, into fruit. That fruit may be eaten by a bird. The bird may fly, the seeds may scatter. The story continues, written not in words, but in cycles. Soil is the pen. Death is the ink. Life is the page. Soil's hidden garden invites you to rethink endings. Perhaps they are not endings at all, but transformations waiting in the dark. Perhaps silence is not absence, but the deepest form of presence, waiting for new voices to rise. What if death is not the opposite of life, but its companion, its echo, its hidden ally? Let us pause here, gently, and remember this truth. Soil does not fear death. It does not resist it. Soil welcomes it, embraces it, transforms it. And in that transformation, life is made possible again and again. Without death, there would be no gardens, no forests, no breath. Life is built upon endings. So tonight, as you breathe, remember that breath itself has passed through countless deaths. The oxygen you inhale has been cycled through roots that drank from decay. The food in your body has come from fields fertilized by the fallen. You are woven from soil's hidden garden, whether you see it or not. And now let your thoughts drift deeper. If one body, one leaf, one shell can nourish entire futures through soil, what then of the smallest fragment? What of the microscopic, the unseen, the worlds within a single handful of earth? Could it be that within the tiniest patch of soil there exists a universe as vast as the sky above? Let us descend further, closer, more delicately, into the microcosm. Let us peer into the unseen universes beneath our feet, where bacteria and fungi outnumber the stars, and where the line between biology and physics blurs into mystery. For soil is not only a hidden garden of death, it is also an infinite cosmos of life. Take a moment now to imagine holding soil in the palm of your hand. Just a small handful, nothing more. At first, it may seem unremarkable. A mix of dark grains, perhaps a fragment of leaf, a pebble, the faint scent of earth. Yet in that small weight rests an infinity of lives, a cosmos more crowded and complex than the stars glittering in the night. Above you, it is said that in a single teaspoon of soil live more organisms than there are human beings who have ever walked the earth. Imagine that. Billions of lives, all unseen, all working, all breathing in miniature. If you could shrink yourself down, fall into that handful and wander like an explorer, you would find landscapes stranger than any science fiction, and communities older than civilization itself. The soil's smallest residents are bacteria. They are architects, chemists, translators of life. Each one is almost invisible, yet together they outnumber the stars in our galaxy many times over. They break down fragments of matter into nutrients that roots can drink. They fix nitrogen from the air, making it into a gift plants can use. They form alliances, sometimes cooperating, sometimes competing, building empires so vast you could never count them. And yet, all of this unfolds silently, invisibly, beneath your feet. Then there are the fungi, stretching delicate filaments called hyphae that thread through soil like invisible roots of their own. These filaments weave together into networks, sometimes spanning forests, linking tree to tree in webs of exchange. A fallen log becomes a feast. A rotting leaf becomes sugar. Through fungi, death becomes nourishment, and nourishment becomes relationship. What falls to the soil does not stay solitary. It is shared. Imagine, then, the scale of this hidden world. Above we look into the sky and see vastness, galaxies scattered like dust. Below in soil, we find the same immensity inverted. Billions upon billions of organisms, each with its role, each with its mystery. If the stars remind us of infinity, the soil reminds us that infinity is also beneath us. To touch soil is to touch the cosmos in miniature. Here is where science blurs into philosophy. For what are these organisms if not expressions of matter arranging itself into life? What are these networks if not consciousness on another scale, a kind of distributed intelligence humming below awareness? The boundaries begin to blur. Biology is physics in motion, chemistry arranged into awareness. Soil is the laboratory of existence, always experimenting, always reshaping, always becoming, and yet soil is also fragile. The balance of its microcosm can be disturbed, its richness eroded, its diversity lost. A field ploughed too harshly, a land stripped too bare, and the symphony beneath falters. This, too, is a reminder. Infinity is abundant, but also delicate. To hold soil in your hand is to hold responsibility, as though the stars themselves had been entrusted to your keeping. Let us return, though, to the wonder of scale. When you gaze at the night sky, you see distance. Stars so far their light has traveled for ages to reach you. But when you gaze into soil, the distance is in time. These microcosmic lives unfold in moments, in days, in cycles, too fast for us to see. What looks like stillness is actually a storm of growth, decay, birth, and exchange. A billion dramas playing out between grains of sand. Think of water passing through soil. To us, it is rain soaking the earth. To microbes, it is a flood, a rushing river, a sea. To a fungal filament, it is an ocean to be crossed, or a tide to ride. In this way, soil is a planet within a planet. Each scale reveals another perspective, another reality. The macro and micro reflect each other like mirrors, reminding us that vastness is not only out there, but also in here. Beneath and within, what does it mean then? That you are made of these same elements, these same patterns. Your own body is a colony of microbes, trillions within you, living symbiotically, unseen but essential. Soil and self are not separate. They mirror each other. Both are universes of the small stitched together into the illusion of the singular. You call yourself one body, yet you are multitudes. You call soil Earth, yet it is galaxies within galaxies. In this microcosmic infinity, questions rise. Does scale matter to meaning? Is a galaxy more significant than a bacterium? Or is the measure of significance not size but relationship? The way each depends on the other, the way each sustains the whole. Soil suggests that greatness is not in distance or mass but in participation. To belong to the cycle, whether a star or microbe, is to matter. And there is poetry in this. For every breath you take, every bite you eat, every step you walk is supported by billions of unseen companions. You are never alone, not even in your most private moments. Soil breathes beneath you, with you, through you. In this way, the cosmos is intimate, not remote. It is carried in the quiet handfuls of soil you overlook each day. Now close your eyes again and picture a handful of soil glowing like a night sky. Each microbe a star, each fungal thread a constellation, each worm a comet tunneling through. This is not imagination only. It is truth disguised as metaphor. There really are more beings in your hand than there are stars in the Milky Way. You hold infinity, and yet it crumbles between your fingers like dust. But soil is more than present infinity. It is also past infinity. Every atom within it has traveled countless journeys through stars, through oceans, through creatures long gone. Soil is not only alive, it is ancient. Every grain is memory. Every fragment is history. To understand this is to glimpse soil not only as microcosm, but also as archive, as storyteller of ages, and that is where we must turn next. For if soil holds universes of life in the present, it also holds the memory of matter across time. Atoms in soil have burned in stars, drifted in seas, and danced in forests long vanished. They have moved from body to body, from form to form, carrying secrets that words cannot hold. So let us listen more deeply. Let us place our ear not just to the breathing of the soil's microcosms, but to the whispers of history written within every particle. For soil is not only alive now, it is a chronicle of what has been, a cosmic ash where memory is written in molecules, and so in the next breath, in the next step, we move from microcosmic universes into the memory of matter itself. Hold a grain of soil in your hand, small, weightless, fragile. It seems like nothing, not even a speck, a fragment, an afterthought beneath your notice. Yet within that grain lies a story that began long before the earth was born, a story written not in ink or script, but in atoms themselves. Every atom in that grain has traveled. It has moved through stars, through oceans, through forests and bodies. It has burned, drifted, dissolved, crystallized, and returned. Matter is not static. It is the great traveler, the eternal migrant, reshaping itself endlessly while never ceasing to exist. Consider carbon, the familiar atom of life. The carbon in your own body may once have been part of a giant redwood tree, or a shell at the bottom of the sea, or a cloud drifting through the sky of the ancient earth. But carbon's memory stretches further still. Before it belonged to seashell or tree or human, it was born in the core of a star, a massive burning furnace where heat and gravity forged simple hydrogen into heavier elements. When that star died, it scattered its atoms across the galaxy, flung outward in a supernova's final breath. From that cosmic ash, new worlds formed. From those worlds, soil. From that soil, to touch soil then, is to touch stardust. But not only stardust, it is to touch ocean spray, volcanic ash, fallen leaves, and bones returned to earth. Soil is a palimpsest, a layered manuscript rewritten endlessly by the universe. Each molecule carries memory, and though it does not speak in words, it speaks in transformations. A molecule of nitrogen once swam in the air, then became part of a blade of grass, then dissolved in the stomach of an animal, then fell back again as waste, then rose once more into the air. Cycle after cycle it remembers, though its language is change itself. Does matter remember what it once was? Science might answer no, pointing out that atoms do not hold diaries of their journeys. And yet, in another sense, the answer is yes. For the past is encoded in their placement, their form, their participation in cycles. The calcium in your bones is memory of ancient seashells compressed into limestone and broken free again. The iron in your blood is memory of collapsed stars exploding outward to give the galaxy its red hues. The soil under your feet is memory of all this, woven together, silent yet eloquent. Here, science brushes against mysticism. For what is memory if not continuity across time? What is history if not matter persisting in new shapes? Soil whispers this truth, that nothing is ever truly lost, only transformed. What dies becomes nourishment. What burns becomes ash. What falls becomes foundation. Matter is faithful. It returns always in new guises. Close your eyes and imagine this continuity. The soil outside your door may hold fragments of forests that fell 1,000,000 years ago. It may hold the remnants of creatures long extinct, ground down into particles too small to name. It may hold the dust of mountains that once towered high, eroded grain by grain until their grandeur became humble earth. Soil does not forget. It archives without intention. It records without design. It is the library of existence written in atoms. Now think of yourself. The matter that makes you, your bones, your skin, your breath, is borrowed. You are on loan from the universe. The food you eat becomes your flesh. The air you breathe becomes your cells. One day you too will return, your atoms dissolving back into the cycles of soil. And though you may vanish as a self, the matter that was you will persist, traveling onward into other forms. Perhaps into a tree, perhaps into a river, perhaps back into the stars. Soil, then, is not only a cradle of life. It is also a grave and also a bridge. It links the dead to the living, the past to the present, the earth to the cosmos. When you stand upon it, you stand upon all that has ever been, compacted into layers so fine you cannot see them. Every step you take is upon history itself. This is why so many cultures across time have seen sacredness in soil. To bury someone is not only to hide them from sight, but to return them to the great memory, to fold them back into the story of matter. Dust to dust, ashes to ashes, but never to nothing. Always to transformation, always to continuation, and perhaps this is why the soil feels alive when you touch it. Not alive in the way of a heartbeat or breath, but alive in the way of resonance. You are touching everything at once: stars, seas, forests, bodies, time. Soil carries it all, and for a moment so do you. Imagine now the soil glowing faintly, each atom a spark of memory. Some shine with the fires of ancient stars. Some shimmer with the currents of long-vanished rivers. Some hum with the voices of creatures whose bones they once composed. Together they are not chaos, but chorus. A harmony written across eons. And from this harmony grows the present. Plants sink their roots into the memory of matter, drawing up water and nutrients shaped by all these pasts. Trees drink starlight through the soil. Flowers bloom from cosmic dust. The green world is memory awakened into form. This is where our path now leads, from soil's archive into its living expression. For if matter remembers, plants are its storytellers. Roots dig into the memory of soil, while leaves reach upward into the light of stars. In their bodies, the past of atoms and the energy of the sun meet. They are mediators, keepers of the great entanglement between earth and sky, and so as we turn the page, we move from soil's memory into the entanglement of roots and stars, where the archive of matter becomes living bridge, and where earth and cosmos intertwine in every leaf. Beneath your feet, roots move quietly. They are slow, almost invisible in their gestures, but they are always searching. Downward, outward, through the soil, they extend like fingers feeling through memory. To watch them, if you could, would be to watch patience itself. A slow unfurling, a reaching into darkness in search of sustenance. And yet their story does not end in the ground. For though they burrow deep, they are also in conversation with the sky. Every molecule they gather is more than nourishment. Carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus, oxygen. Each has a history that arcs across stars and seas before settling here, into the body of a plant. The carbon drawn into leaves by photosynthesis was forged in stellar furnaces eons ago. The nitrogen pulled into roots through the soil is the descendant of cosmic explosions scattered across galaxies before being folded into Earth's cycles. When you look at a tree, you are looking at a bridge, a mediator, a living entanglement between soil and starlight. This is one of the great paradoxes of life. Plants seem still, silent, ordinary. They surround you so completely that they often vanish into the background of your awareness. Yet within them something extraordinary unfolds. They are translators of the cosmos. They take soil, which is memory, and light, which is energy, and weave them together into form. Leaves flutter with sunlight trapped as sugar. Roots pulse with minerals pulled from the ancient earth. In every cell of green, the history of stars meets the immediacy of now. Imagine the roots as tendrils of time itself. Some reach shallow, just beneath the surface, feeding on yesterday's fallen leaves. Others dive deep, meters down, tapping into water laid down centuries ago. All of them are engaged in exchange, not just taking but giving. Roots leak carbon back into soil, feeding the invisible networks of fungi and bacteria that surround them. This hidden economy sustains entire ecosystems. One tree shares its excess with another. A dying plant releases its last stores into the soil where neighbors absorb and continue. What looks like an individual is in truth part of a web, and what of the stars? Without their ancient deaths, the roots would have nothing to draw. No carbon, no nitrogen, no oxygen. Every plant you have ever seen, every forest, every blade of grass, every garden, is built of stellar remnants. When you inhale, the oxygen filling your lungs was made possible by plants, yes, but its original creation required the collapse of suns larger than imagination. Soil and starlight are not opposites. They are partners. Together they weave the fabric of life. Pause for a moment and let that sink in. The green world around you, the very food you eat, is the result of an entanglement across scales so vast it almost feels impossible. Microscopic root hairs pulling in minerals. Vast stellar furnaces fusing elements. Two extremes, the infinitesimally small and the incomprehensibly large, converge in the body of a plant. And in turn, they converge in you. For everything a plant gathers becomes the foundation of your own body. There is humility in this recognition. You are not separate from the cosmos. You are woven into it as surely as a leaf is woven into a branch. The roots that press downward are extensions of you. The starlight that falls upon leaves is energy you too depend upon. Life is not divided. It is threaded. Consider the tree again. Its branches extend into the air, drinking light. Its roots extend into the soil, drinking memory. Between them flows water, carbon, minerals, sugars. A circulation that ties earth to sky. It is easy to see the tree as standing alone, but the truth is it is always in dialogue with the soil beneath, with the light above, with the invisible networks all around. And if you zoom out, the forest itself becomes one vast organism, roots intertwined, canopies sharing light, air alive with exchange. Science has shown us that even across species this entanglement holds. Trees of one kind may feed those of another. Fungi may connect entire forests into what some have called the wood wide web. Roots do not simply dig, they communicate. They signal distress, they share resources, they weave collective survival. Beneath the stillness of a forest floor lies a conversation millions of years old. But science also brushes against poetry here. For what else is entanglement if not kinship? The atoms in a leaf were once stars. The sugars in a root are shaped by soil's memory. The cycles of giving and receiving echo the very rhythms of life and death. A plant is not simply alive, it is a reminder. It tells us that everything is connected, that boundaries blur, that soil and starlight are not opposites, but parts of a single song. And when you look up at night, at the stars scattered like jewels, you might imagine their light pouring down into the leaves around you, captured and stored as food, as breath, as life. You might imagine the roots below taking in the dust of ancient seas and bones, combining it with that starlight into something new. You might realize that the entanglement is not only in plants, it is in you too. You are a child of soil and starlight, rooted in the earth, reaching for the sky. This recognition is not only beautiful, it is grounding. In a world that often feels fractured, where the human mind imagines itself apart from nature, plants remind us that we are bridges. We are not alien to the earth, nor strangers to the cosmos. We are the entanglement itself. Every breath you take continues this chain, oxygen made by leaves, carbon exhaled into air, nitrogen circling through soil. You are part of the circulation, inseparable from the system, and here lies the gentle invitation of plants to remember. To remember that your roots, though invisible, reach into soil just as theirs do. To remember that your body is composed of stars. To remember that entanglement is not weakness, but belonging. As we move forward, let us ask, if soil and starlight are entangled in plants, where else does this pattern appear? Could it be that our very minds reflect a similar web, complex, entangled, ever-renewing? When you look at soil, with its billions of hidden lives and ceaseless transformations, do you see not only the foundation of ecosystems, but a mirror of your own consciousness? For in the next step of our journey, we turn inward. From the roots and stars that weave the visible world, we move to the hidden world of thought itself. We ask whether the mind is not a machine, but a soil, alive with networks, nourished by cycles endlessly renewing. And so, from the entanglement of roots and stars, we now walk toward the mystery of soil as a mirror of consciousness. Close your eyes and imagine your mind not as a machine, not as a clockwork device with gears and levers, but as a living landscape. Beneath the surface, thoughts move like roots, weaving connections you cannot see. Memories layer like sediment, building depth upon depth. Emotions rise and fall like the weather, sometimes nourishing, sometimes eroding, always reshaping. In this quiet vision, your mind does not resemble a computer. It resembles soil. Soil is complexity embodied. Within a handful, billions of organisms live and die. Networks emerge, dissolve, and reform, each influencing the others in ways too subtle to measure. It is not a single voice, but a chorus, not a solitary order, but a collective balance. Likewise, consciousness is not a singular thing. It is not housed in one neuron or one thought. It arises from the vast entanglement of countless parts, each interacting, each influencing, each transforming the whole. Science has long compared the brain to a machine. Circuits, wiring, inputs, outputs. This metaphor has power, but it is incomplete. A machine is rigid. A machine obeys design. But the mind is not rigid. It adapts, it heals, it renews. Just as soil rebuilds itself after fire or regenerates after flood, the mind recovers from loss, reshapes itself after trauma, grows again where it seemed barren. It is not steel and silicon, but earth and water and breath. Think of how soil processes death. A fallen leaf does not remain a leaf. It is broken down by fungi, eaten by worms, dissolved into nutrients, and fed back into roots. From what seems like decay comes rebirth. The mind, too, processes experience.
Pain does not remain pain forever.
Grief does not remain grief untouched. Over time, new meanings grow from old wounds. New perspectives arise from what once seemed unbearable. Consciousness, like soil, turns endings into beginnings. Within soil, there is no central authority, no single ruler dictating its order. It thrives through collaboration, through balance, through networks of exchange. Consciousness, too, seems to emerge, not from one master cell, but from the interactions of billions of neurons, each carrying signals, each shaping the whole. Out of chaos comes coherence. Out of multiplicity, a sense of self arises. The unity you feel when you say I is the harmony of many voices, just as the fertility of soil is the balance of many organisms. There is also mystery here. Soil resists reduction. You may analyze it chemically, list its minerals, measure its pH, but its vitality is something more, an emergent property born from its complexity. Consciousness is similar. Neuroscience maps neurons, records brain waves, traces chemical signals, but the living quality of awareness, the experience of being, eludes simple description. Both soil and mind remind us that some realities cannot be reduced to parts alone. They must be understood as wholes, as living systems, as processes that transcend their ingredients. This invites a question: are we not mirrored by the ground we walk upon? Our thoughts, like seeds, sprout or wither depending on what surrounds them. Our habits, like roots, entangle and deepen with repetition. Our dreams, like buried nutrients, may lie dormant until conditions awaken them. To know yourself, perhaps, is to see your mind as soil, dark, fertile, intricate, alive. And soil, like the mind, requires care.
Neglect it and it hardens. Overexploit it and it erodes. Poison it and it loses its vitality.
The same is true of consciousness. To nourish your mind is to tend to it as you would a field, allowing rest, providing balance, welcoming diversity of thought, giving it space to renew. Both mind and soil flourish under cycles of effort and rest, death and renewal. Even more wondrous is how both create connections beyond themselves. Soil connects sky and earth, capturing fallen rain and feeding rising roots. Consciousness connects inner and outer, weaving your private world of thought with the shared world of language, culture, and meaning. Both are mediators, soil between death and life, mind between self and cosmos. Neither exists in isolation. Both are bridges. In this sense, consciousness may not be something that happens only inside your head. Just as soil is alive only because of the countless organisms within it, consciousness may be alive only because of the countless exchanges you share with the world, with others, with language, with memory, with place. Perhaps the mind is not an island, but a field. Perhaps to be conscious is to be entangled, to belong. As you sit with this thought, you may feel a quiet comfort. If the mind is soil, then its complexity is natural, its mysteries expected, its cycles familiar. Confusion is not failure. It is the turning of layers. Sadness is not absence. It is part of the renewal. Joy is not a miracle. It is a bloom from hidden roots. You are not broken for being complex. You are soil, always in process, always becoming, always holding both endings and beginnings. This reflection brings us to a deeper frontier. For if soil reflects the mind, then the very fertility of soil must have its own physics, its own invisible architecture. Beneath the chemistry and biology lies a scaffold of bonds and energies, quantum exchanges and molecular dances. Fertility is not only the abundance of matter, it is also the choreography of forces that allow matter to renew itself. As we leave the mirror of consciousness, we descend further into the hidden order of fertility. We move from philosophy to physics, from metaphor to energy, asking what invisible laws make renewal possible? What unseen dance allows soil to turn death into life again and again? And so, from soil as a mirror of consciousness, we now step into the physics of fertility, where the unseen scaffolding of energy reveals itself as the quiet architect of rebirth. When you hear the word fertility, perhaps you imagine abundance, green fields, heavy harvests, orchards bending with fruit. Fertility feels like a gift, something given freely by the earth. But if we listen more closely, if we look beneath the surface, we find that fertility is not magic in the loose sense of the word. It is something even more astonishing. A choreography of physics, an invisible dance of forces and energies that turn still matter into the spark of growth. Soil fertility is often described in terms of chemistry: nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, the balance of minerals, the cycling of organic matter. These descriptions are true, but they are not the whole story. For before chemistry comes physics. At the most fundamental level, it is the laws of energy, the architecture of bonds, the subtle exchanges of electrons and photons that make fertility possible at all. To understand fertility is to descend into the invisible scaffold that holds life upright, a scaffold woven of quantum bonds, molecular vibrations, and energy transfers that never rest. Begin with water. Every drop that enters soil does more than moisten. Water molecules are polar. They have a subtle asymmetry, a tilt in their charge, with one side slightly negative and the other slightly positive. Because of this, they cling to each other and to minerals, forming networks of cohesion and adhesion. Without this polarity, water would not travel through roots, would not rise into stems, would not quench leaves. A river of invisible forces carries fertility upward, drop by drop. Physics sustains the stream. Then consider clay, one of soil's oldest and most essential components. Clay particles are tiny, so small that their surfaces dominate their mass. These surfaces carry electrical charges that attract ions: calcium, magnesium, potassium. Through electrostatic forces, clay becomes a reservoir of fertility, holding nutrients until roots request them. A plant's survival depends on these silent exchanges of charge, on the unseen pull between particle and ion. What looks like dirt is, at the subatomic level, a field of energy, a quiet storm of attraction and release. Zoom further down into the atomic bonds themselves. Fertility depends on the breaking and forming of bonds, carbon linking with oxygen, hydrogen bridging with nitrogen. These bonds are not static. They vibrate, stretch, flex, break, and reform in endless cycles. Quantum mechanics governs these dances. Electrons jump between orbitals, share space, or release light when they fall. Each movement is governed by probabilities, by wave functions collapsing into outcomes. Fertility is not a guarantee, but a possibility. Repeated so often, it becomes certainty. Life depends on this quantum gamble, on the willingness of electrons to leap, to share, to entangle. Energy, too, flows invisibly through fertility. When organic matter decomposes, microbes release energy from carbon bonds. That energy warms the soil, fuels metabolism, powers growth. But energy is never lost.
It only transforms.
The warmth in the soil once belonged to the sun. The carbon once stored in a leaf now moves through bacterial respiration. Fertility is a theatre of energy transformations, one form dissolving into another, death reorganized into vitality. Think of decomposition itself. A fallen leaf does not simply crumble into dust. Physics drives its transformation. Bonds snap, releasing stored solar energy. Microbes harness that energy to drive their own processes, splitting molecules, rearranging them, exhaling carbon dioxide back into the air. Enzymes act like keys, unlocking bonds that once held the leaf intact. Each step is physics at play, bonds shifting, energy moving, molecules rearranging into forms roots can absorb. Fertility is decay reorganized. Fertility is the artistry of entropy repurposed for renewal. At larger scales, physics shapes soil structure. The way particles clump or separate determines how air and water flow. Gravity pulls water downward, but capillary action, born of surface tension, pulls it sideways and upward, feeding roots that reach in all directions. Soil breathes through pores, tiny tunnels of space where oxygen flows in and carbon dioxide flows out. Fertility is not only chemical richness, but physical openness, the architecture of space itself allowing cycles of air, water, and life to circulate. And yet fertility is not only about matter and energy. It is about balance. Too much water and roots drown. Too little and they wither. Too much nitrogen and soil becomes acidic. Too little and growth falters. Physics is always a question of equilibrium, of forces balancing, of flows adjusting, of cycles stabilizing into patterns that endure. Fertility is the harmony of opposites, stability born of flux, abundance born of restraint. Now step back and see this as a whole. Beneath every field, beneath every forest, fertility is physics in motion, molecules vibrating, bonds shifting, charges pulling, energies flowing. It is a symphony without conductor, an orchestra where each particle plays its part without knowing the song. And yet, the result is always the same: renewal. Is this not astonishing? That the same laws which govern stars also govern soil? That the quantum leaps of electrons in atoms echo in the growth of wheat, in the fruiting of trees, in the very bread you eat? Fertility is not a local accident. It is the universe expressing itself in the language of life. The physics that sustains galaxies also sustains the garden. There is a humility here, but also wonder. The soil beneath your feet is not passive. It is a stage where fundamental laws of the universe play out daily, quietly, persistently. You may not notice, but physics never ceases. Fertility is the universe's patience embodied, its laws transcribed into Earth's cycles.
Every seed that sprouts, every root that thickens,
Every harvest that feeds, all are signatures of the same forces that light the stars. And this recognition carries us beyond science into something older, something human. For across time, people have sensed that soil's fertility was more than material. Ancient cultures saw in it a mystery, a divinity, a source of life that exceeded explanation. They told stories of earth goddesses, of clay that shaped humanity, of soil as the body of the sacred. Before physics explained, myth interpreted. Before chemistry measured, story gave meaning. Perhaps both are needed. Physics tells us how fertility works, the bonds, the charges, the flows. Myth tells us what it means, the reverence, the belonging, the sense that fertility is not only process, but presence. Science speaks in equations. Myth speaks in symbols. Both circle the same truth, that soil is more than dust, that its fertility is a bridge between death and life, matter and spirit, physics and story. And so, from the unseen scaffold of fertility, we move now into the realm of shadows and light. We ask how ancient peoples saw soil, how they shaped it into gods and symbols, how they told themselves that this ground was not only physical, but divine. For if fertility is physics in motion, myth reminds us it is also mystery in motion. In the next chapter, we will walk among stories, from Mesopotamian clay to Hindu Prithvi, from Greek Gaia to African ancestral earth. We will see how myth has always known what science is just beginning to remember, that soil is where spirit and matter entwine. Before microscopes and laboratories, before chemistry and physics, humanity looked at soil and saw divinity. The ground was not inert dust, it was mother, origin, and grave. It was a threshold where the human touched the eternal. Soil gave food, received the dead, and in between whispered stories that cultures wove into gods and myths. Across civilizations, soil has been shadow and light, feared as a reminder of mortality, revered as the matrix of life. Where modern science sees molecules and microbes, ancient myth saw spirits and deities. Yet beneath the difference in language, both point to the same intuition. Soil is where matter and mystery intertwine. In Mesopotamia, the world's first cities rose from riverbanks heavy with silt. Out of this clay, myths say, humans themselves were formed. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, the goddess Aruru molds the wild man Enkidu from clay, breathing him into life. Clay was not just substance. It was a medium of creation, a divine fingerprint pressed into matter. The symbolism is striking. Clay is humble, pliable, yet enduring. To be made of clay is to be fashioned from the earth's body, to belong to soil as child belongs to mother. Creation myths here remind us that fertility was not only about crops, it was about existence itself. To till the ground was to work with the very flesh of divinity. Far east, in India, the earth herself was personified as Prithvi Mata, Mother Earth. She bore not only plants and animals, but the very law of life. Farmers prayed to her before sowing seeds, acknowledging that soil was not mere matter to be exploited, but a living goddess deserving respect. Even today, in rituals, a pinch of soil is honored before sacred acts, as if to say, all begins here. In Greece, she was Gaia, primordial mother of gods and titans. From her womb came mountains, seas, and sky. Gaia was both nurturing and wrathful, capable of abundance and catastrophe. To the Greeks, the earth's soil was not neutral. It carried mood, agency, presence. To violate the soil was to offend a goddess who could shake the ground itself. In African traditions, too, soil is sacred. Among the Akan of West Africa, the earth goddess Asasi Ya is second only to the sky god. She governs fertility and truth, and it is on her back that humans live. To swear falsely while touching soil was to invoke her judgment, for the ground itself was witness. Soil was not passive surface, but listening presence. But soil was also shadow, the place of endings. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust, in a phrase echoing across cultures. To be buried in soil was not only disposal, but reunion, the body returning to the matrix from which it came. Soil as mother also meant soil as grave. The paradox was always present. The ground nurtured life, and the ground consumed it. This duality haunted ancient imagination. Soil was both blessing and terror, both womb and tomb. Myths reflected this ambiguity. The same soil that birthed humans in clay myths also swallowed them in burial. The same earth goddess who gave harvest could unleash famine. Soil contained both light and shadow, abundance and void. Rituals often bridged this paradox. In Egypt, Nile silt was sacred. Ceremonies honored its return in the flood. In Mesoamerica, soil mixed with blood sealed covenants with gods, acknowledging that fertility was bought with sacrifice.
Even in the Hebrew Bible, the ground is not neutral. It cries out with the blood of Abel. It opens to swallow rebels.
Soil is always listening, always storing, always responding. Here myth and modern science begin to touch. Today we know that soil is indeed a medium that remembers while holding pollen grains, fossil fragments, layers of ash. Ancient myths, though wrapped in story, intuited something true. Soil keeps record, soil responds, soil is not indifferent. We might be tempted to dismiss these myths as superstition, yet they carry insight science cannot erase. To see soil as goddess or ancestor was to cultivate reverence, to embed humility into daily life. Farmers who bowed to soil before sowing may not have known about microbes or quantum bonds, but they knew dependence, vulnerability, gratitude. Myth gave soil not only meaning but dignity, and perhaps this is what modern science risks forgetting. In equations and measurements, soil can appear as object, resource, commodity. Myth reminds us that soil is also subject, presence, mystery. It is both physics and story, molecule and metaphor. To see only one is to see incompletely. If myth made soil into goddess mother and grave, science today shows another layer of its mystery, soil as memory. Beneath every step lie pages of a book written in grains, layers, and strata, volcanic ash, pollen, fossil dust, each pressed into the archive of Earth. Where myth said soil remembers through spirit, science now says it remembers through matter. Both point to the same idea: soil is a keeper of time, a witness to what has passed, a silent recorder of life and death. In the next chapter, we turn from myth to geology, from gods to layers. We will read the Earth's hidden diary and discover how soil itself is a cosmic clock, inscribing both rebirth and decay across ages. Beneath your feet lies a library without shelves, a diary without ink. Soil is not just matter. It is memory pressed into layers, each one carrying whispers of what once was. To look at the ground is to look at time slowed into stillness, history folded into strata, memory written not in words, but in fragments of stone, ash, and bone. Where our eyes see only dirt, the earth hides an archive patiently composed over millions of years. Imagine peeling back the surface. At the top, loose humus cradles the present, roots, leaves, a beetle tunneling through fragments of bark. Below, darker layers hold older chapters, pollen grains from forests that no longer stand, charcoal from fires burned centuries ago, shells of tiny creatures crushed into dust. Deeper still lie the traces of vanished seas, volcanoes, glaciers. Each layer is a page, each grain a letter. Soil is the book of time, and the earth itself is its patient scribe. We often think of time as an arrow, straight, relentless, moving forward, yet soil suggests another form. Time as sediment, time as accumulation. Nothing vanishes completely. Everything is folded into the ground, compressed, remembered. The breath of a mammoth lingers in the carbon of a peat bog. The pollen of ancient flowers sleeps beneath prairies. The ash of eruptions becomes the base of fertile valleys. Soil does not forget. It keeps record in silence. Consider volcanic ash. When a volcano erupts, it seems sudden, catastrophic, obliterating. Yet once the fire cools, ash settles into soil, marking a layer that geologists can trace centuries later. That thin band of grey tells of destruction, but also of renewal. For ash is rich in minerals, feeding plants that will rise from the barren land. In this way, soil captures both death and rebirth in a single page. The dark edge of catastrophe, followed by the green promise of new life. Or consider pollen. Invisible to the naked eye, it drifts, falls, and sinks into the ground, preserved for millennia. Through pollen analysis, scientists can reconstruct entire landscapes of the past. By counting grains, they see forests grow and retreat, grasslands expand, climates shift. In these microscopic particles, soil keeps a diary of ecosystems long gone, landscapes we will never walk but can still imagine. Soil is not just archive. It is storyteller, fossils too, a time folded into stone.
A tooth, a leaf, a shell, each a snapshot of a life once lived.
Buried, compressed, transformed, fossils remind us that nothing truly vanishes. Life becomes imprint, imprint becomes memory, memory becomes layer. Even the smallest trace, a footprint hardened in mud, is preserved by soil, waiting to be read. The ground is a witness, its testimony, patient, unhurried, eternal. This is the paradox of soil as timekeeper. It holds both impermanence and permanence. On the surface, life seems fleeting, fragile. A leaf falls, a body decays, a building crumbles. Yet beneath, traces endure. Time rearranges, compresses, conceals, but never entirely erases. Soil embodies the tension between change and continuity, between the fleeting and the eternal. It is both clock and archive, both process and record. Scientists read soil much like historians read texts. Stratigraphy, the study of layers, reveals not only what happened, but when. The thickness of a band of ash marks the scale of an eruption. The spread of certain pollen shows the arrival of agriculture. Even radioactive isotopes left from nuclear tests in the 20th century now form a layer that will remain visible for tens of thousands of years. A stark reminder that our actions, too, are etched into the Earth's diary. Soil is honest. It records without judgment, writing every chapter, whether harmonious or destructive. And yet, beyond science, there is poetry here. To walk across a meadow is to walk on layers of vanished lives, on memories of seas and forests and creatures that no longer exist. The ground is a palimpsest. Beneath each present lies 1,000 pasts. When you press your hand into the soil, you touch not only this moment, but echoes of moments across eons. You are in contact with time itself. Contrast this with the way we usually think about memory. Human memory is fragile, selective, often unreliable. We forget, we distort. But soil remembers with patience, holding every layer, every trace. Where our minds lose detail, the ground preserves it. Soil is the Earth's unconscious, carrying everything it has lived through. And just as soil records time, it also reminds us of our place in it. We too will become part of this diary. Our bodies, our cities, our machines, all will one day be sediment. To accept this is not despair, but humility. Soil is a mirror of impermanence, but also of continuity. To know we will be remembered by the ground is to know we belong to the story, not as its authors, but as its passing chapters. Soil as timekeeper also blurs the line between past and present. The nutrients that feed a tree today may come from the dust of mountains eroded millions of years ago. The ground beneath a city may contain fossils of seashells from when it was ocean. In soil, time collapses.
Ancient and present intertwine.
To eat bread is to taste geology. To breathe air enriched by plants is to breathe cycles older than civilization. But there is mystery too. Does soil only record, or does it also dream? Does the archive of pollen, bones and ash remain inert, or does it exert subtle influence on the future? The past shapes the fertility of the present.
The dead feed the living.
Perhaps memory in soil is not passive but active, guiding the rhythms of life. Soil does not only hold time, it weaves it forward, and here we glimpse a deeper question. If soil keeps time in layers, are we not also layered beings? Our consciousness too has strata, memories buried, impressions compressed, fossils of experiences long past. Just as geologists dig to uncover epochs, we dig into ourselves to uncover forgotten truths. Soil is a metaphor for the mind, a reminder that nothing within us fully vanishes, even if it lies hidden beneath layers. As you listen, imagine standing on an open plain. Beneath your feet stretch miles of hidden time. Forests that rose and fell, animals that walked and vanished, fires that raged, rains that nourished.
All are still here, just deeper than your eye can see.
You are not standing on solid ground. You are standing on history itself. The earth holds you not only in space but in time, and so soil as timekeeper is not only geology but philosophy. It shows us that to live is to participate in a continuum, to be both fleeting and enduring, both moment and memory. We are small, but we are written into the same archive as mountains, forests, and stars. Soil reminds us that time is not just something that passes, it is something that accumulates, something we leave behind. Which leads us to another question, another image. Beneath the soil, networks of tunnels wind unseen, roots probing downward, worms burrowing, channels carrying water and air. These hidden passageways connect the layers, link the living with the dead, bridge the present with the past. In physics, wormholes are said to link distant parts of the cosmos,
folding space so that what is far becomes near.
In soil, worms and roots create their own wormholes, collapsing distances between decay and rebirth, between memory and growth. Could it be that beneath our feet lies not only the diary of time, but the tunnels of transformation? Could soil itself be a wormhole, not through galaxies, but through life and death? When we hear the word wormhole, we usually look upward into the night sky toward the mysteries of physics and cosmology. Wormholes are imagined as shortcuts through space and time, tunnels bending the universe so that what is distant can suddenly become close. They are bridges across the impossible, doors between realms. Yet beneath your feet, far from galaxies and stars, a humbler kind of wormhole already exists. Worms burrow through soil, carving tunnels that collapse distance not in space, but in life and death. Each tunnel dug by a worm is a pathway of transformation. Through it, air enters the ground, water seeps deeper, roots find channels to explore. What looks like emptiness is actually corridor, a connection that allows cycles to continue. The worm does not know it is an architect of renewal, but with every movement it creates a passage where decay becomes fertility, where what has died is carried forward into new beginnings. The metaphor is irresistible. Wormholes in physics and wormholes in soil. One connects distant galaxies. The other connects endings and beginnings. One bends the fabric of space-time. The other bends the fabric of life and death. To imagine soil as a wormhole is to reimagine the ground not as surface but as portal. Not a static floor beneath our lives, but a dynamic bridge carrying matter and meaning between realms. Think of a fallen leaf. It drifts to the ground, its veins dry, its greenness fading. In a world without soil, it would remain as waste, a relic of what once was. But with soil alive beneath it, the leaf is carried downward, chewed by worms, broken by fungi, dissolved by microbes. Through countless tunnels, its fragments are spread, shared, transformed. The leaf is no longer a leaf, but nitrogen for a root, sugar for a seedling, food for a beetle. A life ends, but through the wormholes beneath, it is translated into 100 new beginnings. The cosmic metaphor deepens when we realize that wormholes, as imagined by physicists, are never empty. They are filled with strange energies, bending reality itself. Similarly, worm burrows are not voids but full of potential. They carry oxygen, moisture, minerals. They are narrow, but within them flow the elements that sustain forests, fields, and harvests. What seems small and insignificant, a tunnel in the soil, is in truth a bridge holding ecosystems together. And perhaps this is the humbling lesson. The cosmos may contain grand bridges across space-time, but the earth beneath us already holds bridges just as essential, just as mysterious. We look outward for the miraculous, forgetting that miracles also crawl quietly beneath us, blind and tireless, shaping the future from the debris of the past. There is another resonance here. Wormholes in physics are unstable, fragile, prone to collapse without exotic conditions. Worm burrows, too, are temporary, always shifting as soil is turned, as rain fills gaps, as life moves on. Both remind us that passageways between realms are delicate, never permanent. The bridge between decay and growth, like the bridge between galaxies, must constantly be remade, and so when you walk on soil, you walk above an unseen map of tunnels, a labyrinth of wormholes beneath your every step. Each tunnel is a thread in a greater fabric, a network of transformation. Wormholes beneath your feet connect the remains of what has died to the hunger of what is yet to live. They are the small, tireless physics of life on Earth. Close your eyes and imagine shrinking, descending into this hidden world. You find yourself moving through a dark passage carved in soil.
Moisture beads on the walls.
Tiny roots dangle like chandeliers. The air is rich with the scent of earth. You are inside a wormhole, not between galaxies, but between states of being. Behind you, decay.
Ahead of you, growth.
Around you, silence. Yet a silence humming with possibility. The metaphor invites a philosophical question. If wormholes in the cosmos could carry us across light years in an instant, what do soil's wormholes carry us across? Perhaps they carry us from the fear of death to the acceptance of cycles. Perhaps they teach us that endings are not walls but tunnels, that what seems lost is simply moving through a passage toward renewal. Soil whispers that decay is not annihilation but transit. Life does not stop. It shifts corridors. This vision reshapes how we see death itself. To lie in soil is to enter the tunnels of transformation, to be guided through passageways where the body becomes nourishment, where memory becomes matter, where matter becomes life again. Soil is not a grave alone. It is a network of wormholes translating loss into continuation. And yet, there is humility in the worm's work. No worm seeks to be cosmic. No worm claims to be a bridge between realms. Its tunneling is blind persistence, yet its persistence sustains forests, fields, civilizations. In this way, soil's wormholes remind us that cosmic truths may be carried not only in stars, but in humble creatures. Sometimes the profound is hidden in the small, the blind, the overlooked. As you breathe now, consider that part of the air filling your lungs passed through soil, carried by these tunnels. Consider that the food sustaining you grew because roots followed wormholes into deeper ground. You are, in ways unseen, a child of these burrows, nourished by the hidden bridges beneath. Soil as wormhole reframes life and death. It shows us that what is distant is not always unreachable, that what is lost is not always gone. Just as physics imagines a tunnel between galaxies, soil reveals tunnels between decay and vitality, between silence and song, between the past and the future. The bridge is not far away, not hidden in stars. It is here, beneath you, patient and tireless, and in this realization a question lingers softly. If decay itself is a tunnel, then what is it like inside? What is it like to move through silence, to feel endings dissolving into beginnings, to pass not into void, but into renewal? Soil's wormholes invite us to imagine death, not as rupture, but as gentle transit, not as chaos, but as calm passage. It is here that we begin to hear another story, quieter still. The silence of decay, the patience of endings turning into beginnings. The ground as a chamber of transformation, where what falls apart is not destroyed but reorganized into balance. Wormholes teach us of passage. Now decay teaches us of stillness. There is a silence beneath us that goes unnoticed. It is not the silence of absence nor the silence of emptiness, but a living quiet. The sound of transformation, so slow, so patient, that it slips beyond our ears. This is the silence of decay. In soil, endings do not scream. They do not collapse in violence. They dissolve gently, quietly, atom by atom, molecule by molecule, folding themselves back into the rhythm of life. Imagine a fallen branch resting on the forest floor. At first, it still holds the shape of what it was. Bark, wood, rings of years once counted. Rain softens it, fungi reach into it, beetles carve into its flesh. There is no explosion, no rush of drama. Instead, there is patience.
Fibers loosen.
Cells collapse.
Minerals drift.
The branch becomes soil, without ceremony, without spectacle. It is the world's gentlest recycling, a soft surrender back into the ground. Decay is a paradox. It is both ending and continuation, both disappearance and persistence. What was once form becomes formlessness, and yet nothing is truly lost. Matter is not destroyed. It is reorganized, woven into new patterns. The silence of decay is not emptiness but exchange, a hidden chorus of transformation. If you could listen closely, not with ears but with imagination, you would hear a million tiny voices, fungi breathing enzymes, microbes sipping molecules, worms dragging fragments into tunnels. Together they hum a quiet hymn of renewal. This silence mirrors our own mortality. We often fear death as rupture, as chaos, as final darkness. But soil suggests another vision. Death is not a scream. It is a soft return. To To decay is to rejoin balance, to give back what was borrowed, to fold into the patient cycles of the earth. Soil teaches us that impermanence is not annihilation. It is a passage into equilibrium, a dissolution into wholeness greater than the self. Consider the body itself. When it returns to soil, muscles dissolve into nitrogen, bones into calcium, breath into carbon. Each element is carried away into new stories: nitrogen-feeding grass, calcium-strengthening shells, carbon breathed out by leaves into air. The silence of decay is also the continuation of presence. What once walked and spoke now lingers in meadows, forests, clouds. To die is not to vanish, but to change address, from singular form into collective rhythm. This lesson runs deep in human culture. Many traditions understood decay not as enemy, but as teacher. In Buddhism, impermanence is central. All things pass, and in passing they reveal the truth of existence. In certain native traditions, death is a giving back to the land, a recognition that what we call ourselves was always on loan. Soil, with its quiet dissolutions, embodies this wisdom physically. It shows what philosophy tells: endings are not catastrophes, but transitions. Yet silence can be unsettling. In our lives, we are tuned to noise and to progress, movement, growth, action. Decay resists that rhythm. It refuses urgency. It operates in patience, often invisible. A leaf does not vanish in a day. A tree trunk may take decades. Soil reminds us that transformation often requires time longer than our attention can hold. To embrace decay is to embrace slowness, to honor processes beyond our schedules. There is a humility in recognizing this. Our machines rush, our cultures chase speed, our lives are measured in productivity. Soil waits unhurried. It transforms at its own pace, teaching us that renewal need not be immediate. In silence and patience, the impossible becomes inevitable. Decay whispers, trust the process, even when unseen. On a deeper level, decay is not only silence, but balance. When something dies, it releases what it held. Nutrients locked in tissue become available again. Energy concentrated in one form disperses into many. This is not loss, it is redistribution. Soil is the great equalizer, ensuring that no life hoards forever, that what is gathered is eventually given. Decay is fairness written into matter. It prevents permanence, reminding all things, trees, animals, humans, that they belong to the cycle, not above it. This balance speaks to our mortality with unexpected comfort. What if death is not chaos but calm, not rupture but return? What if the silence we fear is actually the soft hum of rejoining? Soil suggests that mortality is not a flaw but a feature, not tragedy, but symmetry. To live is to borrow, to die is to return. In this cycle, nothing is wasted, nothing is forgotten. As you breathe now, remember, every breath carries atoms of ancient decay. Oxygen released by leaves fed by soil.
Carbon once exhaled by creatures long gone.
Even in your body, decay participates. Cells die and are replaced daily, quietly, invisibly. You are not untouched by decay. You are sustained by it. Life depends on endings as much as beginnings. This realization softens fear. If decay sustains the forest, if silence feeds life, then perhaps our own endings are not to be dreaded but trusted. Soil tells us that impermanence is not a void but a gift. To decay is to give back, to enter into reciprocity, to complete the circle. And perhaps this silence holds a deeper resonance still. Beyond biology, beyond ecology, there is rhythm at the smallest scale. Particles themselves decay, subatomic events unfold silently, unseen. Even the quantum world whispers endings and transformations hidden beneath the veil of appearance. Soil, in its quiet patience, reflects this deeper truth, that the universe itself is built on transitions, on dissolutions that give rise to continuities. This prepares us for the next step in our journey. We have listened to the silence of decay, the gentle patience with which soil transforms loss into renewal. But what lies beneath that silence? What invisible energies flow through the ground, carrying particles from one form to another, exchanging, entangling, vanishing, and reappearing? At the deepest level, soil is not only chemistry, not only biology, but quantum breath. Particles oscillate, fields ripple, matter dances in and out of being. Just as decay teaches us patience, quantum soil teaches us wonder, that life and death are not static endpoints, but oscillations in a grander rhythm. In the next chapter, we descend into that rhythm, into the quantum pulse of soil itself, where endings and beginnings are not opposites, but vibrations of the same eternal field. Beneath the silence of decay lies a deeper pulse, a hidden rhythm that never stops. Soil is not stillness, though it appears so underfoot. At its foundation, soil is motion, particles vibrating, atoms colliding, electrons leaping between states. This invisible motion is the soil's breath, a quantum rhythm that binds life and death into oscillation rather than opposition. Take a handful of soil. To the eye it seems solid, grounded, quiet, but in truth it is more void than matter. A dance of subatomic particles separated by vast emptiness. Within every speck, electrons orbit, protons hum, quarks flicker, in and out of presence. Soil is not fixed substance. It is flux condensed, a whirlpool of probabilities stabilized just enough for us to call it Earth. This perspective changes everything. We often imagine life and death as states, alive, then not,
Form, then dust.
but quantum soil teaches a subtler truth. Nothing holds still. Molecules split, recombine, vanish into energy, reappear as matter. Decay is not a one-way fall, but a series of oscillations. Particles transforming, reorganizing, carrying information across thresholds. Soil does not merely host life. It vibrates with the same fundamental rhythms as the stars. In physics, quantum entanglement describes particles linked across space, responding to each other instantaneously, as if no distance separates them. What if we thought of soil in this way? Every handful of dirt is entangled with the cosmos. The nitrogen atom nourishing a root may once have burned in the heart of a star. The carbon fragment returning to the soil may have belonged to a body, a tree, or an ancient sea creature. Soil is not just matter. It is memory entangled with everywhere and everything. When we walk across a field, we are not stepping on something inert, but on waves of connection, energy rippling through invisible threads. Each step presses against histories we cannot see. Ancient volcanoes, oceans evaporated, forests dissolved. Soil, in its quantum breath, holds all of them, not as static relics, but as rhythms in motion. To understand this breath is to enter a paradox. At the smallest scale, nothing is permanent, and yet permanence emerges. Soil holds form, clay, sand, humus. Yet each is a pattern, not a fixed object. Patterns persist even as particles churn. This mirrors consciousness itself, a continuity made from impermanence. Just as thoughts arise and dissolve while the mind persists, matter flickers and reorganizes while soil persists. The breath of soil is not metaphor alone. Microbes breathe it daily. Oxygen cycles through pores, carbon dioxide seeps upward, methane escapes from flooded grounds. These are visible exhalations of invisible processes, the chemistry of life made possible by the physics of vibration. Every molecule exchanged is a testament to the ceaseless rhythm within. Consider the act of composting. Food scraps dissolve into soil through microbial labor. But beneath biology lies physics, bonds breaking, electrons shifting, energy released as heat. What we call rotting is in truth a choreography of particles obeying quantum laws. To compost is to witness energy transmute, a reminder that death is not cessation, but redistribution across fields of possibility. In this way, soil becomes more than matter. It becomes metaphor for existence itself. Life and death are not endpoints, but waves in oscillation. The tree grows, falls, decays, and in decay its atoms scatter, joining air, water, new roots. The human lives dies, returns to soil, where particles flow onward into grass, flower, animal. Each breath you take now contains molecules breathed by those long gone.
Inhale deeply. You are sharing atoms with dinosaurs, poets, ancestors.
Quantum breath binds us across time. This dissolves the fear of finality. The soil shows us that there is no finality, only transformation. What looks like an end is a fluctuation, a pause in one form before reappearance in another. Life is a pattern of energy gathering, death is dispersal, and soil is the stage where both exchange endlessly. And yet quantum soil also humbles us. The precision of its dance lies beyond our control. We may alter ecosystems, strip fertility, pollute, but the underlying physics continues. Energy flows regardless, particles seek new bonds, rhythms persist. Soil whispers that we are not masters of transformation, but participants within it. This truth has spiritual echoes. Mystics have long spoken of breath as the essence of being, the divine inhale and exhale sustaining creation. In soil, that metaphor becomes material. At every moment, particles inhale energy, exhale matter, oscillating in rhythms that echo the cosmos itself. To kneel in soil is to kneel before the same breath that swirls galaxies, the same quantum pulse that sustains stars. Pause and imagine. If soil breathes, then so do we, not separately, but together. Every lungful is an exchange with soil's invisible exhalations. We are woven into its rhythm, our pulse nested within its deeper vibration. This dissolves boundaries. There is no absolute line between us and Earth. We are not merely on soil, but of soil, breathed into form by its quantum currents. Seen this way, death loses its terror. To die is to exhale fully, to release into the larger breath of matter and energy. Soil does not mourn endings, for it knows there are none. It participates in perpetual inhalation and exhalation, drawing life in, letting it out endlessly. What we call life is simply the inward breath of soil. What we call death is its outward sigh. Together they sustain the infinite cycle. Perhaps this is why ancient cultures often linked soil with sacred breath. In Genesis, the divine breath animates clay into life. In Hinduism, prana flows through all forms, binding the elements. In indigenous traditions worldwide, breath and earth are not separate but entwined. To breathe is to share the earth's own spirit. Today, physics gives that intuition new resonance. Soil and breath, quantum and sacred, are not metaphors reaching across distance, but reflections of the same truth, and so we arrive at a threshold. Soil is not just a medium of growth, but a living portal of oscillation. To decay is not to vanish, but to join the breath. To live is not to stand apart, but to participate in the inhale. The soil's quantum rhythm reframes mortality not as defeat, but as belonging. This prepares us for the next vision. If soil breathes in quantum oscillations, then perhaps to enter soil is to enter transformation itself. Burial, compost, regeneration. These are not mere fates of matter, but doorways into continuity. Soil does not close the story. It opens it into another form. In the next chapter, we step through that doorway. We will see soil not as ground beneath, but as portal, the place where endings are rewritten as beginnings, where death and life no longer stand as enemies, but as dance partners moving together in eternal rhythm. To step into the soil is to cross a threshold. It looks like earth, it feels like ground, but it is more than a surface beneath your feet. It is a portal, a doorway, where endings dissolve into beginnings, where forms surrender only to be reborn in new disguises. Soil is not passive matter. It is the alchemist of existence, transmuting what falls into it into what will rise again. Consider the burial of a seed. To the eye it vanishes, swallowed by darkness. To the impatient mind it might appear gone, lost, reduced to nothing. But soil whispers differently. Inside the hidden chamber, the seed swells, splits, and pushes roots into the earth's embrace. From the silence of burial comes the music of emergence. What looked like disappearance was in truth transformation. The seed did not end. It entered the portal and came out changed. The same is true of compost.
Scraps of food, dead leaves, broken branches, to us they seem like leftovers, refuse, discards of life.
But in soil, these fragments are welcomed into a process far more profound. Microbes, fungi, and worms dismantle the remains, atom by atom, molecule by molecule, releasing nutrients into the waiting earth. In time, what was once decay becomes richness, fertility, vitality. The apple core returns as sweetness in another fruit. The dry leaf reappears as sap in another tree. Compost is not waste management but ritual, an alchemy where death reveals itself as disguised abundance, and then there is burial of bodies, human, animal, all that has ever lived. Soil receives them gently, enfolding them in quietness. Muscles soften, bones weather, identities fade. To us, burial is the end, but to soil it is continuity. Proteins dissolve into amino acids, bones into minerals, stories into dust that mingles with clay. From this grass rises, flowers bloom, insects thrive. Soil makes no distinction between corpse and cradle. It transforms both with equal devotion. This is the portal's lesson. Death and life are not adversaries but dance partners, moving in an eternal rhythm.
One step forward, one step back, one form dissolving, another emerging.
The soil is their ballroom, their stage, their endless circle. What you bury is not lost. It simply shifts into another step of the dance. Science confirms this transformation. Carbon atoms, once locked in flesh, re-enter the atmosphere as carbon dioxide, feeding leaves that draw them into sugars. Nitrogen in proteins becomes fuel for roots. Calcium in bones nourishes new shells and stems. At the atomic level, there is no ownership, no permanence of form. Your body today carries atoms that once belonged to strangers, animals, even ancient mountains. You are already a mosaic of transformations past, and the soil ensures the cycle continues. Philosophy deepens the story. For centuries, sages and mystics have pointed to soil as the place where opposites reconcile. In Taoist thought, life and death are not opposing forces but complementary aspects of the same flow. In Hindu traditions, reincarnation is the soil's promise made cosmic. The soul, like the body, never vanishes but takes new form. Even in Western traditions, where death has often been painted as final, metaphors of resurrection and renewal remind us of soil's unbroken rhythm. Whether through myth or science, soil has always been recognized as the portal through which endings are rewritten as beginnings. There is comfort here. We fear death because we imagine it as silence without return, as absence without renewal. But soil reveals another vision. To die is to re-enter the cycle, to step back into the current of transformation that has always carried you.
Death is not exile but homecoming.
What you have borrowed returns. What you have given remains, reshaped, reimagined. Imagine yourself lying in soil, not as a fearful thought, but as a gentle truth. Your body softens, loosens, releases. Worms weave through, microbes sip at molecules, rain seeps down, and slowly, quietly, you join the dance. A root brushes past, absorbing your atoms. A leaf drinks sunlight with your carbon. A bird sings with energy partly born from you. Soil ensures you are never gone. Instead, you are translated into infinite expressions. This portal of transformation is not only about bodies, it is about every moment. Every breath you take exhales carbon into the air, feeding soil, feeding plants. Every meal you eat is transformation. Soil turning into flesh, roots turning into memory. Every step you take crushes tiny grains, mixing particles that will one day carry life again. You are always crossing the portal, even while alive, part of the alchemy that never ceases. There is something profoundly egalitarian in this truth. Kings and beggars, poets and wanderers, trees and insect, all enter the soil. Status dissolves, hierarchy fades, identity unravels. What remains is the rhythm, the return, the shared belonging to Earth's portal. Soil is the great equalizer, the place where all distinctions are erased and all are rewritten as part of the same song. And yet, within this equalizing portal, individuality is not erased, but dispersed. Your body does not vanish into nothingness. It divides and shares itself, becoming multiple, scattering across countless lives. You may be grass, flower, animal stone. Death multiplies you rather than ends you. Soil is not annihilation, but expansion. The poetry of this transformation echoes in the way we speak of grief. We bury our loved ones, but we also say they live on in us, in memory, in legacy. Soil makes this more than metaphor. They truly do live on, in the atoms recycled, in the flowers nourished by their presence, in the air we breathe that carries their molecules. The portal ensures remembrance is not only mental, but material. And so the portal of soil calls us to humility and wonder. It asks us to see that our lives are not separate arcs, but loops woven into larger cycles. It reminds us that endings are doorways, not walls. It offers peace by showing us that what we fear as nothingness is in truth a gateway to everything. But it also turns the mirror back on us. If soil transforms all forms, what does that mean for you? If your body, your breath, your bones will one day pass through this portal, how should you see yourself now? You are not a static self, but a temporary constellation, already half transformed, already shared with the soil that waits for you. And so the portal opens onto the next reflection. Soil does not only teach us about death and rebirth in the abstract, it teaches us about ourselves, our place in the cycle, the meaning of belonging. To look into soil is to look into a mirror of your own impermanence and continuity. To ask, what will it mean when my atoms, my breath, my memories return to the earth? In the next chapter, we walk into this question together. We will see what soil teaches about you, not in theory, but in truth, about your body, your place in time, your eternal return. Soil will remind you gently that you too are part of the cycle, temporary yet eternal, fragile yet infinite. Soil is not only the story of forests, rivers, and civilizations. It is also your story. One day your body will return to the soil as everybody does. And though this thought may feel heavy, even frightening, the soil asks you to see it differently, not as tragedy, but as belonging. Not as an ending, but as a return to the larger cycle you have always been part of. You are, at this very moment, already soil in disguise. The carbon in your breath was once in the air, then in plants, then in the ground. The calcium in your bones once lay in limestone cliffs, in shells at the bottom of oceans. The iron in your blood once burned inside a star before Earth even existed. Your body is a temporary arrangement of ancient particles woven together by chance and necessity, given voice for a little while. Soil will one day welcome these pieces back, not as loss, but as reunion. This truth changes how we see ourselves. We often imagine our bodies as sealed containers separate from the world, but soil teaches that you are not sealed at all. You are porous, leaky, in constant exchange. Every breath you take is a trade with the air and the soil beneath. Every meal you eat is soil transformed into flesh, root into memory. Every touch, every step, every exhale writes your presence back into the world. You are already flowing in and out of the cycle, already participating in the grand return. Think of your breath. Right now, as you inhale, oxygen once drawn from soil through the work of leaves enters your lungs. As you exhale, carbon dioxide leaves you, drifting back toward the soil where roots and microbes await it. In this rhythm, you are not separate from the earth. You are its partner. Soil teaches that to live is not to stand apart, but to circulate, to share, to belong. Think of your bones.
Hard, seemingly permanent, they hold you upright.
But even they are on loan. Calcium and phosphorus come from rock, filtered through plants carried by water. When your bones return to the ground, they do not vanish, but dissolve back into those ancient cycles. What supported you will support another. What carried your body will someday carry a flower, a beetle, perhaps even another human. Soil teaches patience with impermanence, showing that what feels solid is also change in slow motion. Think of your memories. They feel intangible, purely mental.
And yet they are rooted in matter, electrical currents, chemical bonds, pathways etched in the neurons of your brain.
When your body returns to the soil, the atoms that carried those memories will scatter, but their traces will not be lost. They will write themselves into new forms, into roots and rivers, into wind and rain. Soil teaches that nothing is wasted, not even memory. The universe remembers in particles even when we no longer can. This is what it means to belong to the cycle. Your breath, your bones, your memories will all be written back into the Earth's book. You are not erased. You are rewritten. Every life is a sentence in that book, every death a comma leading to the next phrase. Soil is not a graveyard, but a library filled with stories constantly retold. There is a gentle comfort in this vision. It tells you that you are never truly lost. You may pass beyond recognition, but your presence lingers in the soil, in the air, in the water. You live on in forms you cannot predict.
Perhaps in the color of a petal, the call of a bird, the taste of a fruit.
Soil teaches you that immortality does not mean resisting death. It means becoming infinite through transformation, but soil also teaches humility.
It shows you that you are not the center, not exempt, not separate.
You are part of the same cycle that carries leaves, insects, rivers, and mountains. No matter your name, your title, your ambitions, you return like everything else. Soil accepts all without distinction. The emperor and the child, the warrior and the monk, the beloved and the forgotten. In soil, all hierarchies dissolve. What remains is equality, continuity, and renewal. And yet, there is beauty in this humility, for it means you belong deeply. You are not adrift, not exiled, not alone. Soil is always there, waiting to receive you, to turn your form into nourishment for what comes next. Belonging does not mean permanence. It means participation in the eternal dance. You were never meant to escape the cycle, only to move within it gracefully. This truth can shift how you live. If you know that your body will return, that your breath and bones are temporary guests, perhaps you live more gently, more gratefully. Perhaps you treat soil not as resource, but as kin, not as commodity, but as mirror. Perhaps you realize that what you take, you must one day give back. Soil teaches reciprocity. To live is to borrow, to die is to repay. It may even shift how you see death itself. Fear often comes from imagining death as exile, a departure into nothingness. But soil reminds you that you are not leaving at all. You are going home. You are rejoining the same matter that has always held you, the same atoms that once danced as starlight, then river, then tree, then you. Death is not absence, but reunion. Soil teaches you that nothing in you is ever wasted, nothing in you is ever forgotten. And so soil's lesson is both simple and profound. You are temporary, yet eternal. Your form will pass, but your matter remains. Your name will fade, but your atoms endure. Soil does not promise you permanence in the way of monuments or legacies, but it offers you something quieter, perhaps more sacred. Continuity. This continuity is not abstract.
It is intimate.
The food you eat carries traces of countless lives before you. The air you breathe holds atoms exhaled by ancestors. The soil beneath your feet carries the remains of those who lived, struggled, dreamed. You are never apart from them.
You are part of them.
Soil teaches that identity is not isolated but interwoven, that your I is always part of a larger we. And if you look closely, you may see that this continuity is already happening, even while you live. Every 7 years, nearly all the atoms in your body are replaced. You are already returning, already transforming. Soil does not wait for your death to begin the cycle. It has been working with you since your first breath. To live is to return little by little, moment by moment. This realization is not meant to diminish you, but to deepen you. It means your life is not a fragile flame in danger of being extinguished, but part of a great fire that never ends. You are a spark, yes, but a spark that comes from a flame, stretching back to the first stars and forward into futures you cannot see. Soil teaches that you are not only yourself, you are starlight, ocean, mountain, forest, ancestor. You are everything, condensed into this temporary shape, waiting to flow back into the whole. And so soil asks you to rest easy, to know that your return is not loss but continuation, that you will not vanish but transform, that you will become part of the countless stories still to be told. Soil teaches you that impermanence is not something to resist, but something to trust. For within impermanence lies belonging, and within belonging lies peace. And as you absorb this lesson, notice how quiet it becomes. Soil does not speak loudly. It whispers. It hums beneath your steps, beneath your breath, reminding you that you are already part of its book. Listen closely, and you may hear the turning of its pages, the writing of your story, the soft promise that nothing is ever truly gone. This is where soil leaves you, not with fear, but with presence, with the reminder that your life is both fleeting and infinite, fragile and eternal, momentary and everlasting. Soil does not offer you certainty, but it offers you belonging. And sometimes belonging is enough. Now the journey nears its close. We began with soil as breath, as memory, as portal. We end by returning to its silence. In the final chapter, we step back into that silence together. We reflect on soil not only as teacher of cycles, but as the great reminder of rest itself. The rest that comes with sleep, with death, with renewal. Soil, breathing beneath us, invites us into peace. We end as we began, with soil beneath your feet, soft, dark, breathing. It holds you now as it always has, patiently waiting, never rushing. Soil does not demand your attention, yet it has carried you every step of your journey. And now, as you arrive at the end of this exploration, the soil reminds you of something simple, something eternal: silence. The silence of soil is not empty. It is alive with countless movements. The unseen work of roots and microbes, the slow shifting of minerals, the quiet breathing of earth itself. Yet it carries no urgency, no sharp edge. It is the kind of silence that steadies you, that reminds you to exhale. It whispers that nothing is final, that every ending carries the shape of a beginning. This silence is the portal between life and death, a threshold you cross each night when you fall asleep. In the small death of sleep, you let go of the day's form, its worries, its noise. You surrender, trusting that you will awaken renewed. Soil teaches you that death too is a form of sleep, and sleep too is a form of death, not absence, but transformation. To sleep, to die, to be reborn, all follow the same rhythm. Notice the soil's patience. It has been here long before you and will remain long after. Civilizations rise and crumble, forests bloom and fade, rivers carve and shift, and the soil receives them all, turning endings into beginnings. What you fear as finality is, in the language of soil, simply continuation. Silence is not a void, but a space of return. Imagine yourself standing barefoot upon the earth. The ground is cool, textured, steady. Beneath you lie layers of time, dust of mountains, ashes of fires, traces of bones, remnants of roots. Every fragment has returned here, folded back into silence. And yet, From this silence, life rises again. Each seed that breaks open, each sprout that lifts its head, is an echo of this patient ground. Soil shows you that silence is not lifeless. It is generative. Out of stillness comes renewal. As you reflect on this, notice your own breath. Inhale, the air carries whispers of soil, the trace of leaves that gave it shape. Exhale. The soil awaits your offering, receiving your carbon, holding it until it flows into new forms. Even in your breathing, you practice returning to silence. Each breath is a small cycle of birth and release, of arrival and departure, of life and quiet. You may wonder then, why does soil speak so much of death? The truth is, it does not. It speaks of balance. In the human mind, death feels like a boundary, a cliff's edge. But in soil, there are no cliffs, only slopes that curve gently back into new beginnings. Death is not exile from life, but its hidden partner. Soil teaches that they are not enemies, but dancers, moving in circles too vast to see all at once. This is why soil comforts. It does not deny the truth of endings. It simply places them in context. Your body will return, yes. Your breath will fade, yes. Your story will pass from memory. But the soil will carry you not as disappearance, but as continuation. You will not vanish. You will transform. Silence holds this promise quietly, faithfully. And perhaps this is why silence matters so deeply in your life. Amid the noise, the striving, the endless motion, silence is where you meet yourself again. It is where you remember that you are not only what you do, what you own, or what you fear. You are part of a rhythm larger than you, a cycle that does not end. Silence reminds you of this truth, and soil embodies it. In this way, returning to silence is not only about death. It is about living more fully. When you pause, when you listen, when you let yourself be quiet, you are already practicing the return. You are already aligning with soil's patience, already learning how to let go. Silence is rehearsal for eternity. Picture again the soil beneath you. Close your eyes and you may feel it breathing. Slow, deep, steady. You too breathe with it. With every exhale, you sink closer. With every inhale, you rise again. This rhythm has no beginning and no end. It is the rhythm of soil, the rhythm of the universe, the rhythm of you. As the journey closes, the soil offers its final teaching. Rest. You do not need to hold everything. You do not need to solve everything. You do not need to resist the cycle. You are allowed to rest, to release, to return. Just as seeds sleep before sprouting, just as winter holds the ground before spring, so too are you invited into stillness, and in this stillness you are not alone. The soil cradles you as it has cradled all who came before. Your ancestors rest here. The forests of ages past rest here. The forgotten rivers, the fallen mountains, the vanished stars and Mars all rest here. And now you too are invited to join them, not in fear, but in belonging. Silence is the gathering place of all things. There is a tenderness in this belonging. It tells you that nothing in you is wasted, not your joy, not your pain, not your love, not your grief. Soil receives it all. In silence, everything is accepted.
Nothing is rejected. Nothing is excluded.
This is why silence soothes, because it welcomes without judgment, without measure, without condition. As you feel this, notice how your breath softens.
Notice how your shoulders ease.
Notice how your thoughts slow, like rivers finding calm waters. You are returning gently into silence. The soil beneath you is not distant. It is here, right now, in your breath, in your bones, in your being. You are already home. And so as this chapter draws to its close, allow the soil to hold you. Imagine lying down upon it, letting your weight sink, letting your form dissolve into the earth. Imagine silence wrapping around you like a blanket, not of absence, but of belonging. Here you are safe. Here you are remembered. Here you are eternal. The story has reached its end, but the soil reminds you no ending is final. Each chapter closes only to open another. You will rise again, in another form, another place, another time. Soil will carry you there. Silence will guide you there. And now, as you drift into rest, remember this. The universe breathes through you. Each inhale is a gift, each exhale a return. You are not apart from this rhythm. You are the rhythm. To sleep is to join it, to surrender into it, to trust that you belong. Soil, silence, breath, they are all one and they hold you gently. So rest now. Let the soil cradle you. Let silence welcome you.
Let the universe breathe through you.
You are home.